Hi there, my name's Emma, and this is Crash Course World History, and today we're going to talk about absolutely everything, and you're going to like it. You know what's cool? Egypt. That's what's cool.
No, it wasn't.
Shut up, me from the past. What do you think of when I say Egypt?
Pharaohs, pyramids, sand, old sand, cats.
Shut up, me from the past. Also, why are you white? Ancient Egypt is probably one of the most influential civilizations in the world. You may not know much about it, but what I will tell you is that Egypt is in the bowels of the Fertile Crescent, and because of that, they flourished mainly on the banks of the Nile River. People were generally happy to live there when they were ruled over by the pharaoh, who was revered as godlike in status. Most of the pharaohs believed that they should prepare a good burial place for when they die so the afterlife would be fun. They were mummified to get ready for the afterlife. Some of these pharaohs were Snefu Amenhotep IV, who built dams and pyramids because they could. Many Egyptians believed that their souls were linked to the land they were born on, so they worshipped the land and didn't travel very much. Their religion was very important to them, which was polytheism. Also, funnily enough, women were treated almost equally to men. Like the Greeks, Indians, and Chinese, most Egyptians lived in modest homes. Then again, there was the pharaoh, who lived in a huge palace. They had easy trading access because of the Nile, and that's the end of the Egyptians. Let's move on. Goodness, that was a lot. This was going to be harder than I thought. Next up is Mesoamerica. There were many tribes living there at this time, including the Aztecs, Incas, and Mayans. They primarily lived in their own cities, and several made human sacrifices. The Mayans are most well known, however, for their intellectual achievements. They made a calendar that is crazy accurate, major leaps in mathematics, and they were generally smart people. They're the ones who made the calendar that made everyone think the world was going to end. Thanks, Mayans. The Aztecs also made an accurate calendar and improvements in medicine. A notable leader was Montezuma, but the natives were soon driven out by Cortez and the Spanish. So I think it's probably time to move on.
Transition around the world to India.
Psych! Let's go to Thought Bubble.
The story of Buddha. He grew up in a rich family and was mildly obese, according to a lot of statues. One day, he decided to not be rich, and he went off on his own to live off of nothing, despite his family's protests. He went through a long journey, seeing the pains of the world and what desire does to people. On his journey, he witnessed suffering and death. However, eventually he came to a big tree and meditated until he achieved nirvana, which is peace of mind and life without want and hair.
Thanks, Thought Bubble. As you can probably tell, Buddhism is a very important religion to India. Another important religion is Hinduism. Aryans brought Hinduism in with the
Vegas!
No, wait, me from the past, it's Vedas. They believe in karma and reincarnation, so that's religion. India has 4 general caste groups. From the highest to the lowest, it's Brahmin, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Sudras, and don't forget, untouchables. But we don't talk about them. Another big part of Indian culture was trade. Aside from those things, India also formed an empire. It began when a king was assassinated in 321 BC, and a huge army formed. At one point, they even defeated Alexander the Great. Eventually, however, they divided into 2 provinces. Another dynasty took over that, and that's where we'll leave India. Transition. You know what? India has good food, but there's one problem I have with Indian food. You know what that is? The grease. Speaking of Greece, let's talk about Greek history.
Okay.
Gosh, who wrote this? Dang it, me from the past! The Greeks lived on isolated islands and had to provide for themselves. Because they were surrounded by water, they developed an impressive navy. The Greeks were a self-governing democratic civilization who loved to practice democracy. And if you weren't a woman, a child, or a foreign alien, sometimes democracy would be alright. Sometimes tyrants ruled Greece, but not all tyrants were mean guys.
Yeah.
Often women held domestic duties while men went out and debated government, went to the theater, and played lots of sports. Greeks saw their share of trouble, too. They were defeated by the Persians at first, but they banded together to beat them with the better boats. There was also the famous Trojan War, which was fought for 10 years. There was the Peloponnesian War between Sparta and Athens, which lasted for a really long time. But Sparta eventually won, and the Macedonians arrived and conquered Greece. Alexander the Great took over and did some awesome stuff. Along with Alexander the Great, there were some other great people in Greece, like Homer, who wrote Greek epics, and people like Plato, Aristotle, and Socrates, who were all philosophers. Rome. I have the perfect prop for this. Hold on one sec. I'll be right back.
So, Rome was originally ruled by kings, but in 509 BC, Romans decided to start having a real government, democracy. They had many elected officials, including 2 consuls, who were advised by a senate of 600 men. That's where things went downhill. The senate favored the rich, but then, as usual, they failed epically. Open pot time! What do we have here today? Oh, Caesar salad dressing. I'd like to thank Caesar for being stabbed to death, or else we wouldn't have this wonderful dressing.
Oh my gosh, guys, I was gone for 1 minute and you're doing open pot time without me? How dare you? Megan, how did you let this happen? I'm taking this dressing.
Oh well, I suppose this is where I go and talk about the famous Caesar. Julius Caesar was a great conqueror and was the leader of Rome for many years until getting killed to death by Congress after gaining too much power. He was known for falling in love with the Queen of Egypt, Cleopatra. After his death, his son Octavian, later renamed Augustus, in 27 BC, took his father's place as a leader. He was a great emperor, and there was peace for 2 centuries under his rule. Roman culture was influenced by many other cultures, especially the Hellenization from the Greeks. Also, Christianity was spread by Constantine, and that's all we are going to say about that. Then, however, the empire fell apart because everything that could go wrong did go wrong.
Okay, Caitlin, get out. I'm done with my salad. Out. Out.
Okay.
Shoot. Yeah. Okay. It's time for Islam. Islam began when... Megan, take the salad. We're done with Greece and Rome. Get rid of it. Get rid of it. It's Islam time. Islam began when a man named Muhammad was praying in a cave. An angel named Gabriel came to him and told him to spread the word of Allah, or God.
Wait, I thought everyone was Christian.
I don't even know what to say to that, except over 71% of the world is not even Christian. Anyway, back to Muhammad. He accepted the responsibility of spreading the word of Allah, but the people of Mecca didn't appreciate the new religion, so he was forced to leave. After he left the city, Muhammad's new followers wrote a book of Muhammad's words and thoughts called the Quran. They returned to Mecca later and gained lots of followers. The followers split up into 2 main groups called Sunnis and Shiites. They had their differences, but they all followed the 5 pillars of Islam, which are praying 5 times a day, giving money to the poor, the Hajj, confession of faith, and fasting during Ramadan. Cue the Chinese stuff! Hey, white meat from the past, I'm getting pretty tired. Want to take over?
Alright. For as long as I can remember, China is agricultural based. China was ruled in dynasties by powerful people who were very competitive and wanted to gain and keep power. One leader named Confucius created rules about relationships, or the 5 cardinals, which consisted of the relationship between ruler and the ruled, husband and wife, parents and children, older and younger brothers, and friends. He also made sure his people had proper social behavior and harmony, and he later turned into a teacher, teaching the religion of ancestry using bones. China became a great empire with money and power. However, they had many enemies such as the Huns, which is why the Chinese built the Great Wall, using their people as slaves. As for trade, they coined money, made the Silk Road, and produced iron. Did I do okay?
Keep going, you're doing great.
Well, I don't really want to do this anymore. I need to get over it. Sit down. Come here.
Okay.
Thought bubble! Genghis Khan was a ruthless leader who began as a son of a tribe leader. After his father was poisoned by a rival tribe and his wife was later kidnapped, Genghis went for revenge, killing the entire tribe and proving himself. He became the leader of the Mongols. He was ruthless and killed thousands, but he still did everything in his power to help his people. He respected religion and allowed anyone to become part of his empire.
Thanks, Thought Bubble, I think. Genghis also brought back trade and let other countries flourish, allowing cultures to mix. He owned the largest land mass in history. After his death, his empire stayed strong with the help of his children and his grandchildren until many years after it fell. Now, on our last topic, Mesopotamia. Emma, you better finish this out.
Okay. Mesopotamia really didn't have that much going for them when it came to location, unlike the Indus Valley. Mesopotamia was located between the unpredictable Tigris and Euphrates rivers that they believed were controlled by generally angry gods. Over time, however, priests were replaced by kings, who had to be good generals. They slowly took power by hanging out with lady priests, and you can guess the rest. Mesopotamians mainly relied on trade because agriculture sucked due to how unpredictable river flooding was. The government relied on the poor for cheap labor, taxes, and goods, but the majority of the people were unhappy with the government. So whenever new people came in to invade, they didn't fight back. And then there were the Aryans. Whole different story there. I'm not going to go into that stuff. Anyways, Mesopotamia was where the first recorded writing took place. Thanks to writings such as the Code of Hammurabi, which described harsh laws such as an eye for an eye, writings about goats, and lots of history. That's the end of our crash course, world history. So, who wants ice cream?
Sounds good.